If anything good happened in my life, God did it. If anything worked out right in my life, God did it. If I ever made a good decision in my life, God made it. If I ever brought forth fruit in my life, God did it. So when you see me praising Him, I owe Him everything I got, everything I live in, everything I do. To God be the glory.
Well, it's Patrick. Prayer, praise, and it's past midnight. It's 35 minutes past midnight. It's Friday, US time. It's Friday, and I just want to reflect. So it's going to be Patrick, prayer, praise, and reflection. Have you wondered or questioned or gotten frustrated and made the question, God, where are you? Have you wondered, does He still speak? This past Wednesday, God decided to speak, walk in the garden, and to speak to me. I've been waking up early in the morning to go to the park to walk. Many might decide to walk for leisure. Many might decide to walk for exercise. But right now, in the moments I'm walking for healing. And when I say healing, I exactly mean that. My legs were swollen, painful, for lack of work for almost a year. But I am getting back to normal. The swelling has gone down. The pain has disappeared. And slowly, I'm getting back to normal. But this is what I found amazing. Yesterday as I walked, I discovered in the midst of beginning to walk, it's almost like I'm learning to walk again. And there's this lingering concern, or I don't know if you want to call it a fear, where it's like when I get up, I'm debating, should I go for walk, should I stay? Should I go for walk? And then when I start walking, because my body is tuning back slowly, you begin to realize there is a language the body speaks. There is a language that the body tells you, yes, the healing has started. And then the question is, what if I'd reached a point of no return, where, yes, I could get up and walk, but my walk would be limited by needing. I would get up to walk to go to the bathroom. That's a need. I would get up to go to, quote, walk to this place within very short confine, but you're doing it for forced need that you have to attend to. So I really praise God. I praise God that my mind, my body is healing where now I want to walk. Used to do 6 miles almost every day for 28 years. So I'm walking maybe a mile and a half from my house to the park, around the park and back. So every time I meet some of my regular friends that I've made in the park that walk, they walk. They have been doing it. There was no interference in their work. So when I meet them in the park. So I've made friends. And there's one friend, his name is Isaac. I've known him from last year. And he walks throughout from his house, which is on a different part of town, to the park, around the park, then by my house, Then we were having this conversation yesterday. So I asked him, Isaac, tell me, how many miles do you think you walk in a day? So he said, maybe 6 miles. And then he goes, and then when I'm done walking, then I go to the gym for 2 hours. So I go, so that means almost pretty much you walk almost 100 miles in a week. So he kind of paused, thought, and he said, I think 90 miles in a week. And then he made this statement. He's retired. He said, I love walking because there is nothing else for me to do, so I love to walk. And I think Isaac is older than me, so I don't know if he's in his early 80s, but he walks. So, there's a kind of envy, but I said, soon I'll be catching up with him, but not to compete with him, just, for the fellowship. Anyway, so let's reverse back and tell you the blessing of having to develop that discipline. So I got up Wednesday and stepped out. And as I stepped out, standing on my sidewalk, there's a lady. She has a bag tied around her belt, and she's standing there admiring the garden, the flowers. So I go, and as I come close to her, I greet her, say good morning, and she says, is this your garden? I say, yes, indeed, it's my garden. And then she starts asking me the questions. What is that flower? What is that flower? And my response was very easy, because honestly, and that's the way I do it. I say, sometimes I don't have, my brain has no space to find the names, the scientific names. So I say, guess what? I plant my flowers by sight. I like the color. I might read about the plant, is it an annual, perennial, So I told her, that's the way I do it. And the reason I do that is I'm an African that has been blessed to live in this country for a long, long time. So when I arrived, they had no space, no garden for me to plant my sukuma wiki, my maize, my beans. So I gravitated to planting flowers. So I told her, lady, I have to go for a walk, so I'm giving you permission. Step in the garden, walk in the garden, let the flowers talk to you. When I come back, you can tell me the names of the flowers. You can use your phone. They have an application that can identify the flower. And she goes, are you serious? I can walk on your garden? I said, lady, feel free. I've given you permission. And off I went to walk in the park. When I returned, I wasn't expecting, her to be, guess what? When I returned, she was still walking the garden. And then all of a sudden, she started identifying plants. She said, you know what this plant is? But there's one plant that she pointed out. And she said, if you're allergic to aspirin, this plant takes the place of aspirin. To me, that plant is just a beautiful shrub that flowers. And actually, I was almost getting ready to trim it, give it a trim. She goes, no, don't do that. And then we decided together to walk in the garden. She started identifying, this is good for this. She would ask me, and what is this? This is this, this is this. So guess what? Because of that experience, that knowledge of God walking in the garden, it was not the mid of the day, but it was early morning, but God walked in. And as she asked, and as we conversed, so I discovered she's from Haiti. And I think when I asked her, she gave me an ID. She's Dr. Gina. She knows about medicine. So she goes, oh, do you know why I carry the bag? She had a bag, and I posted it in the encounter in my Facebook and YouTube. She said, the reason I carry this bag around my hip is as I do my morning walk, I forage for herbs, I forage. So I said, lady, help yourself. By the time she left here, her bag was empty, almost empty. By the time she left here, her bag was full. Because in my yard, I have mint, I have basil, and I have the medicine she identified. I have dandelion. She said, can I? I say, you can come and pick as much dandelion as you want. You know, we landscapers don't like to see dandelions in our lush lawn. She gave me the second advice. You have such a big, beautiful garden, but you have planted stuff that you can't use. And that is true. I've planted for sight, for therapy for my mind. But above all, I have created my space, my garden, not for myself, but for my neighbors. Because when we moved here, I made a vow to God. I am going to make this place beautiful, not for me, but for people to have the moment of reflection to honor God. And I'm actually now taking it to the high level. I'm rechanging, I'm redesigning. So she said, okay, so we need to grow cilantro, we need to do this, we need to grow this, we need to grow this. So I told her, Dr. Gina, you bring the herbs that you want us to grow and we will grow. So I am in the process, literally and intentionally, having the Imprint Herb Pharmacy officially open. And this is because of the morning encounter with Dr. Gina. And I have many other people that stop by, like you keep hearing me saying my two wonderful sisters from Eastern Europe. And I'm going to take a picture so that you can actually see. I'm going to start consciously having encounter, because usually I sit back in my van. They don't see me, but I see them. You know, they stop, they take picture, they pause, it's like a moment where life stops just briefly, and they're transported to a place of worship. If you read the book of Romans, God makes this argument. He becomes both a prosecutor, a lawyer, and he says, oh, some of you will show up in heaven and you'll already have prepared an excuse as to why you never responded to me. And then God says, did you, by the way, make an observation of the plants, the trees, nature around you? And then he poses the question, who do you think they were trying to tell you about? Who do you think they were pointing to? So, my garden is the best place of God to speak, because when you pause long enough, you can hear God speak. Give you a sermon unbiased, a sermon that is yours and yours alone. So, as I rededicate this garden to the next level, not only as a garden that pleases the eyes, the senses, but also as a garden of a place for food, for medicine, I'm doing it to the glory of God. I've just posted a second video clip of my wonderful, wonderful brother I love so dearly, from Brazil, Itma. We have a house that we have just about finished. We are doing the final touches of a neighbor's house that we have turned from a house to a castle. I kind of posted that on my Facebook. So he was down the street, he showed up, and he came rushing, and he said, when you talked, you mentioned that you have mint. Where is it? So I just pointed at it, I said, right over there. And he goes over, plucks it, and he smells it, and he says, yes, and I love it. And I give him a box. He has a paint sprayer that he wants to pack to send to Brazil. So when I gave him the box, and he said it's kind of small, but he took the box and tucked it under his armpit, and he went and harvested the mint. Then I say, over, come over here. I have basil. And he harvested basil. And then, of course, I say, can you explain that in Portuguese? And he did. He said, mint, good for tea. Then he goes, basil, good for pasta, good for lamb, good for chicken. So already my first customer, my first client has already been served yesterday. He picked mint and basil, and then he said he's going to bring me some other herbs that the grandmother from Brazil, who happens to be an Indian Amazon native, had him grow. And then when he shows back, we are going to identify. Third, as I was checking my Facebook, I noticed I was officially inducted in a group that deals with herbs. Dr. Gina, and they saw and they said, based on your picture and your presentation, you are here officially invited as an honorable member of Medicinal Herb Group. Those were my blessing that took place in the space of the 2 days. Those are my dividends as I walk for healing. And in my garden, I will be using what Dr. Gina identified as a replacement of aspirin. Aspirin is very good. They say, good, but cautiously taken as a blood thinner. So for us, African Americans, we are bound or prone to stroke. So aspirin thins the blood where the heart is not stressed, but we have to be careful because, our president, Trump, has a bruise in his hand, and he blames that as a result of, quote, excess use of aspirin. Who am I? I'm not a doctor. But the point is, I have a natural replacement for aspirin that I can drink a tea every day to boost my energy, to take care of my inner me as I work on my outer me so that I can brag that Mr. Teenager is up, around, and present. My final reflection, I'm going to make this very short. I just finished making a call to my best friend, Bishop John Sikobe. Bishop John Sikobe, we like to use the term, lost his wife. He didn't lose his wife. John Sikobe took care of Flo because she was bedridden from stroke for almost over maybe 8 years. I had not seen them for a long time. So when God arranged for us to meet, me, him, and Babu, we had not seen each other almost for 14 years. So our visit took place in the bedroom where Flo, John's wife, was laid, sleeping. And I remember I'm a very strong believer that those people that seem to be unconscious or in stroke that you think don't hear you, don't understand you, they do. And I say that because I've done hospital ministry where I think the first time I had that experience is there's a young Kenyan who had a serious accident in Pennsylvania, and I was informed, and I was, given the address, and God prompted me to go visit in some town called Bloomsburg in Pennsylvania. He was in coma. And they were wondering, they were preparing, should we send him to Kenya, and so on and so on. Anyway, we showed up. And as we showed up, I talked to him I talked to him, period. I did not treat him like he was in coma. I mean, I don't know how to explain that. And there was me and the person that invited, Mr. Kibos, is the one that gave me the information about the young man, and there was a nurse. The nurse had come in, gone to do something, and as I continued to talk, I was holding this young man's hand, and I said, if you can hear me, press my hand with your thumb. And he did, and at first we thought it was, they call it a reflex action that they do when they're in coma. And all of us paused, stopped, and then I said again, if you actually can hear me, can you press? And when he did that, man, excitement, the nurse was called, everybody was called, and they say, he can hear, he's responding to my voice. And, we did that. I was left there excited. I left there praising God, and of course eventually they sent him back to Kenya because the parents wanted him, if at all. It was not a question of at all, but it was a question of when he would die. So the parents had requested for him to be transported to Kenya for that to take place in Kenya. So anyway, so step forward. I'd not seen John and Flo for almost 14 years. I'd not seen Babu, another good childhood friend, for the same period. And somehow God made it such that I was in Kenya at that time. We met, and we are here on Flo's bedside. And again, same principle. So I started singing. And Flo, at first, she was just there looking like, she spaced out. And the moment I started singing, I don't know if I reached out or she reached out, we are holding hands, and everybody's looking, and it's like, are we? Anyway, the point is she responded, we sang, and that was that. And then, of course, I didn't get to see her for a little while. And of course, the next thing is, I was informed that she had gone on to glory. You see why John Sikobe and Flo are very, very, very special in my life. John Sikobe and myself were the core leaders of Masobra. It was, it started as a football club, and somehow, since we used to teach martial art, the young people in the neighborhood thought they could turn. And actually they did. They turned the football club into a gang. Every neighborhood used to have a gang. Mariakani, we became the gang of Mariakani South B. There was Kaloleni, Jericho, and so on and so on. So when John met Flo, I was there. We were doing our evening walk. And John had noticed her. And she used to live on the second floor in one of the block, I don't know if it's block D in Mariakani. And we used to walk, around the neighborhood, outside the neighborhood. We changed our route where our walk now brought us by her block. And she noticed that she has been noticed. So she would time to be up and out by the balcony when we walked by. But she had a very tough, protective brother. And he also noticed. And he gave John a look, gave us a look that you better watch out. Oh, I'm going to chop you. Anyway, the short story is they fell in love, they got married, and they were happily married until Flo had the medical issues, and she developed the stroke, I think, when she gave birth to her first child, and then she recovered from that, and then she had a stroke that she never fully recovered. But what was the most admirable thing that I admired about John, when I was in Kenya, and I noticed this is a habit that he would have, if he's going out to do visit, like he came to Kileleshwa to visit with me, he would make sure that Flo was in the van with a nurse, and he would bring her along. She might not, it was not easy, since the houses in Kenya are not handicap friendly, but he would make sure he brings her along with an accompanying nurse, and he would visit with us, but she's outside being attended to. And I can tell you, I admired and I love my brother John. Anyway, why am I telling you all this? Flo has been dead, present, absent here, but present with the Lord, I think 2 years. So this coming Sunday, May 31st, God has blessed John with a companion. So John is going to be getting remarried. There are people that get remarried, because they were widowed, others out of divorce, and so on. Anyway, John has been blessed that God has brought somebody in his life, and he's getting married on May 31st. So since I know the weekend is coming and it's going to get crazy and busy as the day gets close, I called my brother to let him know I love him and to bless him and pray for the occasion to be such a wonderful, spacious occasion, because this is a blessing that God has given John. John is, maybe he might be older, maybe 74. I don't know if he's older by 2 years. And so it's a challenge at that age, like they say, to get into a relationship of commitment. But God has blessed John, because actually, in fact, the children initially were opposed to the idea of him getting married, but he said he wasn't looking for their opinion. So that is my reflection of what God has done since Wednesday, Thursday, and I'm in anticipation of Friday. It's already Friday, and I am looking forward to Sunday to get the pictures, the videos of my brother getting a new companion in his later stage of life. In fact, I was speaking to somebody, and they say, why is he doing that? Does he have the energy to invite somebody in his life at this late stage of his life? And I say, you know what? And the person actually was kind of surprised. And even I was surprised. I say, when God created man, the woman was later. So when God created the woman, he did so as a ministry to the man, because God said it is not good for man to be alone. So as much we have made relationship seems like they are built on the sexual part. But guess what? God said it is not good for man to be alone. So when I shared that insight with the person I was talking to. They go, wow, because she's a lady. She goes, wow, I never thought of that. I said, yes. The conversation about relationship was God and man. And then God was so generous to help Adam not go in a cardiac arrest. He put him to sleep, formed this wonderful, wonderful creature that was different from anything Adam had seen. And when he woke up from his sleep, and God presented this wonderful, beautiful, Adam just goes, Mama mia! And I guess the presence of God helped him not go into cardiac arrest, because then he makes the statement, she was taken from my rib. So relationship, companionship is what God had meant. It's after the fact, after they disobeyed, after they sinned, that the quote, the emphasis of the sexual part, the reproduction part came into being. And you can remember God saying, yes, they shall be childbearing, but there will be no singing glory songs, there will be screams. And the man is gonna bring bread by the sweat of his brow. So I'm happy for my John C. Coben. In short, my reflection, God still speaks in the garden. That's why he brought or introduced me to Dr. Gina, the herbalist. Then God allowed me to gift forward by giving me a wonderful brother from Brazil. He's the one that has made it possible for Ubuntu builders to have such a reputation. I posted a little bit of the finished product of the renovation that we have done at Gina's home. That is now a castle. So we are going to finalize, do the floors and blah, blah. And then hopefully, if it all works out, there will be a mini jazz concert taking place in our yard. So you can see I'm excited. You can see why they call me Mr. Teenager. There's plenty of life to be lived, especially when God talks with you. I tell people, I walk with God. And guess what? How can I not help walk with God? It says he came walking in the cool of the day. It's not Adam that went looking for God. No, God longed for their company. So he came walking into the garden. And God noticed they were not sitting in the bench where they usually meet. So God asked the first question. He knew what had happened, but he did not ask about the disobedient part of the question. He just said, where are you? I'm here. Where are you? So I will conclude by saying, where are you? God is still seeking for you. God is still longing for your fellowship. That's why Jesus Christ came. Reconciliation simply means God wants us to go back to the fellowship bench. He seeks us out. He seeks us out. That's his modus of operation for God, seeking us out. So, where are you? I hope you have an answer for God. It's the most beautiful response you can ever give. So be blessed. Be blessed. I'm too excited. Today's Friday. I'm already anticipating, there are things I'm doing. Like I said, I'm doing a renovation in my yard. So tomorrow, early this morning, it's already Friday. So I have, certain things. I've already brought some flowers. I bought hibiscus, 2 hibiscus plants, because I discovered hibiscus is the best tea. In fact, my youngest daughter went and bought dehydrated hibiscus flowers from a Spanish store, and she put it on the counter for me to know. And I haven't yet opened it, but she put it where I can't miss it. So I have dried hibiscus flowers. So I have the lemon, so I'm going to make myself some hibiscus lemon tea. So be blessed. Patrick, prayer, praise, reflection, and Imprint Herb Pharmacy is open for business and ministry. Bye-bye. Tell me in Brazil, take the mint and...
Em Brasil se chama hortelã. Isso é ótimo para achar.
Your name?
My name is Gina.
Gina.
Sister Gina.
And I'm Patrick.
Nice to meeting you.
She's
Patrick.
from Haiti. I'm
Yeah,
from
I'm
the
from
big
Haiti.
Haiti, Africa.
Yeah.
Kenya.